First encounter with the Tulip Group. On this beautiful autumn morning, Claire and her mom headed to the nearby playground. The weather was perfect for a little sand play. Since one of Claire's favorite games was making sand cakes, they brought a big bag of sand toys with them. The little girl settled down in the sandpit as soon as they arrived. She wanted to make a cake as her 3rd birthday was coming up. Her mother sat down on a nearby bench and Claire started digging a deep hole to find wet sand. She was digging and digging when suddenly her shovel hit something. She put the shovel down beside her and reached into the hole with her hand, trying to fish out whatever it was. It turned out to be a big, colorful pebble. "Wow! How big!" Claire said excitedly, then reached for the shovel to continue digging. But to her surprise, the shovel was gone. Suddenly, she saw it in the hands of a boy she had never seen before. "Hey, that's my shovel. Give it back," Claire said. "I just want to play for a bit," the boy said, running away with the shovel towards the other sandpit. Claire ran after the boy and saw that there were more children playing in the other sandpit. "I wonder who they could be," she asked herself. Finally, she boldly went to the boy and took her shovel out of his hand. The boy, startled, pulled Claire's hair in response. "Ouch! That hurts!" cried out Claire. "Patrick," a gentle voice interrupted the little boy. "You mustn't hurt anyone." "But she took the shovel out of my hand," Patrick said. The lady smiled. "Actually," she explained, "it belongs to the little girl over there." Patrick looked surprised. "But how can I play now, Mrs. Sparkle?" he asked. "Mrs. Sparkle?" Claire looked up. "Are you preschoolers?" she asked. "Yes," Patrick nodded, tears welling up. "We are from the Tulip Group. Adam and I wanted to see who could dig the deepest hole, but we only had one shovel. I needed one too." "Darling, don't cry," said Mrs. Sparkle kindly. Claire looked at her closely, as she had never seen a real nursery teacher before. As Claire was about to start nursery school and felt a little nervous, she watched with curious eyes to see what would happen next. She wondered what it would be like to be in a nursery group. "If the only problem is not having enough shovels, we can easily fix that," said Mrs. Sparkle. Then she did something amazing. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a red sandpit shovel. "In fact," she said, "you know what? Shovels for everyone. Let's have a big competition together." She continued with a smile and pulled more colored shovels out of her pocket. Claire was amazed. "Wow! Mrs. Sparkle can do magic." Turning to Claire, Mrs. Sparkle asked, "Will you play with us?" Claire's eyes sparkled. "Can I?" "Of course you can," Mrs. Sparkle replied. "Come on." The children gathered in the sandpit and the competition began. "I'm timing it," Mrs. Sparkle announced. "The one who can dig the deepest in 5 minutes wins. Go!" Meanwhile, Claire's mom arrived and was surprised to see Claire playing with the nursery kids. "And time's up," Mrs. Sparkle said. So everyone had to stop digging. "Let's see who dug the deepest." What a surprise! Dolly won. "But after all," Mrs. Sparkle added, "it doesn't matter, right? The point is that we all had fun together. And she was absolutely right. Claire also had a great time. In fact, playing with the other children was much better than being alone. "Am I going to come here too, Mum?" asked the little girl. "I don't think so," replied her mother. "You must be proud of your little girl," Mrs. Sparkle remarked. "She behaved very well." "Maybe we will meet again, and you can play with the Tulip Group another time," she said to Claire. "Tulip Group?" Claire's mother asked. "But I also signed you up for the Tulip Group." "Really?" Claire's eyes lit up. "Yes, the nursery isn't far from here, is it?" Claire's mom looked questioningly at Mrs. Sparkle. "No, it isn't," Mrs. Sparkle replied. "Well, that's wonderful," she went on. "Then we'll see you soon indeed. I'm so happy to have such a clever, bright little girl in our Tulip Group." Claire was very happy. She chatted excitedly with her mom about her wonderful day all the way home. She couldn't wait for the moment when she would see Mrs. Sparkle and the children again and finally become a real member of this magical Tulip Group. Kate's first day at nursery. Kate's first day at nursery was filled with emotions. She cried a lot because she didn't want to stay there alone without her mummy. Who would take care of her here? Her mother tried to comfort her, but Kate continued to cry. Then she remembered that her beloved plush toy, Bobby Bunny, had been left at home. If only Bobby Bunny were here, she wouldn't feel so alone. Just then, a kind-looking lady with red hair approached. She had a warm smile and a colorful tulip peeking out of her skirt pocket. "Hello, you're Kate, aren't you?" she said gently. Kate looked up, her eyes filled with curiosity. Who is she? She wondered. "Welcome to the Tulip Group," the lady continued. "I'm Mrs. Sparkle. Come with me." She pointed to a door with a big bright tulip painted on it. "There's nothing to worry about, I promise." Kate hesitated for a moment, then slowly let go of her mom's hand and followed her inside. The room was bright and cheerful, filled with toys of all shapes and colors. "You're a very clever and brave little girl," Mrs. Sparkle told Kate with a smile. "Shall we go and meet the others? Come, I'll introduce you to the boys first. This is Marco. He's wearing a blue cap. Adam is playing with the toy train. Patrick has a t-shirt with a sun on it. And over there is Thomas, the boy with glasses." "And now let's meet the girls," Mrs. Sparkle continued. "Claire is sitting at the table. Dolly is wearing a dress with hearts, and Natalie is busy playing with the pots." "Hi, are you coming to bake cookies with us?" Dolly asked cheerfully. Despite the warm welcome, Kate still felt a little shy. She sat down on the rug and began playing with colorful building blocks. Adam was also building a castle with his blocks. And he needed the blue cube that Kate was holding. "Give it to me. This will be my castle tower," he said, and grabbed the cube. But Kate didn't want to let go. They both pulled at the block, neither willing to give in. At last, Adam managed to pull the block from Kate's grasp. But in doing so, he accidentally knocked over his own castle. Their eyes filled with tears. Mrs. Sparkle stepped in. "Adam, We don't snatch things from others. If you need something, you ask politely, she said firmly. It's not nice to behave like that. I'm sorry. I won't do that again, Adam mumbled. Kate didn't say anything. She just felt sad. This was the first thing she wanted to play with, and now everything felt ruined. Soon it was lunchtime. Most of the children ate happily. Only one little girl had lost her appetite. After lunch, it was time for a nap. Mrs. Sparkle helped Kate get ready, but Kate still felt upset. All she could think about was going home. After story time, Mrs. Sparkle asked her, "Do you see this pocket on my skirt?" "It's a real magic pocket," she added. Kate's eyes widened. "Magic pocket?" "That's right," Mrs. Sparkle nodded. "This pocket can bring out the things we need. And right now, what we need most is for you to have a wonderful time with us." Then she reached into her pocket and fiddled with it for a moment as if searching for something. Then, all of a sudden, out came Bobby Bunny. "Bobby Bunny!" Kate gasped in delight. "But I forgot you at home." "This really is magic." "Thank you, Mrs. Sparkle," she said happily. She hugged her bunny tightly, and in the blink of an eye, she was fast asleep. Kate woke up well rested, the last one to rise. The others were already preparing for snack time. Suddenly, Kate felt hungry too. After snacks, Kate's mom arrived. They said goodbye cheerfully, and for the first time that day, Kate felt excited about coming back to this magical Tulip Group the next day. Adam and the blanket. The Tulip Group was getting ready for their afternoon nap. Some children were looking for their plush toys, while others were neatly arranging their clothes. Mrs. Sparkle was selecting a bedtime story. Adam was sitting on Patrick's bed, chatting about playing with toy cars after the nap. Once everyone was tucked up in bed, Mrs. Sparkle began to read a story about the elves who lived in a castle. The elves had been turned into mushrooms by a wicked witch, but the good fairies helped them change back. By the time the story ended, most of the children had fallen asleep. Only Adam was excited, wriggling like a restless little worm inside an apple. "Adam, stop moving. You're keeping me awake," Kate grumbled. "I can't sleep either if you keep disturbing me," Natalie added. "When will you stop?" Thomas muttered sleepily. But instead of answering, Adam simply blew his nose loudly. "Adam, please, try to be quiet," said Mrs. Sparkle, but Adam couldn't stop fidgeting until he woke everyone up. "I would sleep if I could, but I can't," Adam complained. "What shall I do now, Mrs. Sparkle?" he asked curiously. Mrs. Sparkle wondered what she could do. Then suddenly she had a brilliant idea. "I've got it!" she exclaimed. She reached into her magic pocket and pulled out a huge blanket. The blanket had enormous eyes, blinking kindly, and its mouth was huge with lots and lots of teeth. "This is a very special blanket," Mrs. Sparkle said, "as it loves telling bedtime stories. I'll tuck you in with it, and by the time the story ends, Adam, I bet you'll be fast asleep." Mrs. Sparkle tucked Adam in, and the moment she did, the blanket opened its huge mouth and began to tell a story. "My sweet children, gather near. A lovely tale you're about to hear. Close your eyes, rest your head. Let dreams of magic now be spread. In a forest so deep, where tall trees sway, lived a curious boy called Sam, as they say. He never felt tired, no matter the day. He explored the big forest where he loved to play. One day he found a bush snoring loud and deep. Sam kicked it softly to see who might sleep. Out jumped the fox, grumpy and sleepy. "Why did you wake me?" the fox asked fiercely. "I'm sorry," said the boy. "I didn't mean to. I was just surprised that a bush could snore too." The fox rubbed his eyes with a yawn and a shake. "It's not the bush, it's me, for goodness sake. I never sleep, it's just not for me. I'm Sleepless Sam, wide awake as can be. You woke me up, now I'll chase you through, until you get tired and feel sleepy too." The fox chased Sam through trees and streams, while Sam ran on right into his dreams. Now in the forest, with trees oh so tall, you can hear Sam snoring, echoing through all. The fox taught Sam the best lesson indeed, that everyone needs sleep. It's a very great need. By the time the blanket story came to an end, the entire Tulip Group was sleeping soundly. And Adam slept the deepest of all.